Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing and highlighting some truly interesting people. Everyone who is anyone, both the famous and the infamous, from presidents and their first ladies to kings and queens, movie stars and pop stars, captains of industry, heads of state, sports personalities, innovative entrepreneurs, and some pretty fascinating everyday people. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Hana Boruchov, an attorney who is the first member of her family to get a graduate degree, an achievement that inspires her to serve as inspiration for not only her own daughter, but for future generations to come. And Hana, or should I say colleague, as you are an attorney also, what inspired you to dedicate yourself to the legal profession?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I've always been sort of like a helping type personality ever since I can remember, and I wanted to help, all those around me. And what better way to do that through the legal field, right? So through law, it's been a really great vehicle to help others, to assist those who are in need, and that's really what drove me towards law.
I was inspired to become an attorney, from something I actually saw on television as an 8-year-old little girl. My grandmother described lawyers as the people that you could go to when you really needed help. And so, similar to you, it was just my nature to want to help other people. And so, I love that about your story. So, as an attorney, tell me what your specialties are.
So I deal primarily in tax controversy resolution. That's things like when people get in trouble with the IRS or with the state. So it could be something like an audit, like an income tax audit, a sales and use tax audit, a residency audit, or it could be something with collections. Things like if they get a penalty, I'll try to abate them. If there's a lien or a levy. If payment plans offer in compromise, where I actually compromise the debt that's owed. And that's what I do.
So, counselor, what personal qualities do you think make you an effective attorney?
Well, I think number one, I'm pretty competitive. So I don't like to take no for an answer. So if something is not working, I always try another approach. So that's one. Another thing is attention to detail,
Yes,
very
sir.
important in law, right? So from reading to writing, to just fact finding, the better your facts are, the better your position is going to be.
And attention to detail absolutely is imperative, especially in your area of tax law, because a detail that is missed could send a client to jail for a very long time. And that means that you really do pay attention to detail. But I'm just curious, what interests you specifically in tax law?
Well, it wasn't my first pick. I was more interested in maybe intellectual property,
Okay.
but I kind of fell into it. I was pretty good with numbers.
Mhm.
And, what I learned about tax law that I thought was really interesting is pretty much everyone has to file taxes. And, there's all different backgrounds, all different professions. I get to learn about people's lifestyles, about how they run their different businesses. So I found it very fascinating.
Hannah, that's so funny. I just all of a sudden, because I'm in media, thought to myself, that sounds like a TV show where the tax lawyer is really digging into other people's families so that you're exactly right. No matter who you are, from the very rich to those who are in a lower income strata, everybody's going to have to pay taxes at some point. And so looking at how a family approaches it and what their backstory is a very interesting way to spend one's career. So I guess that makes me think, since you are fascinated by the variety of people you get a chance to service, how do you give back to your community, which also encompasses a variety of people?
Right. So I do that in a variety of ways. We do a lot of pro bono work, which is free legal work
Hmm.
for the lower income people who can't afford when they really need an attorney, a tax attorney to help them with their issues. We will help out with that. I also do a volunteering of various types. I'm on the board of a nonprofit for an animal. They do animal adoptions.
Hmm.
So I try to give back to my community in those ways.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Being someone that loves my dog with all my heart and soul, anything that you can do to be supportive of those little four-legged lives, I certainly do appreciate it. But I'm going to be very, very, very biased right now and say to you, I know there are a number of people out there that are saying to me, Star, ask for some tax tips. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. What are some of the tips that you might be able to provide to help people around tax time?
Ooh, around tax time. So I would say try to be as prepared as possible, gather all the things you're going to need to provide to your accountant, if you use one to prepare your return. We don't have a debtor's prison in the US. So that means even if you're going to owe something and you're afraid to file, because sometimes I run into people who are afraid to file, you should definitely file for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can always deal with whatever the liability is going to be at the end. Number two, it starts the statute of limitations. Federally, they only have 10 years to collect against you. So once you file and you've been assessed, that statute starts running.
Oh, such great information. I feel like I needed to have a pad and a pencil right there. But I'm going to switch gears for a minute and move off of work and go to personal because I know you have a young daughter who you hope to inspire, as I said during your introduction, to further her education, but also to serve as inspiration for future generations. So, why don't you talk to me a little bit about your backstory and how you think that can inspire others?
So I grew up traveling all over for my dad's work. He was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And my family and we lived in Korea, we lived in Italy, and then we eventually came to the US. Nobody in my family, even though they valued education, nobody was really, they didn't really, I guess they didn't have the means to
Mm-hmm.
go to school. So for
The
me,
desire was there, but the opportunity wasn't always.
yeah, it's not so easy, and it's not really for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not always you need the opportunity to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for me, I was able to get some scholarships. I did attend university, and then after that, I decided to go further and went to law school and became an attorney. My daughter, she's 17 months old. She's my first child. Um,
Congratulations.
she was actually the motivation for me to start the firm. By now I was pregnant, and I was working at another law firm as an associate, and pandemic hit, and it was in 2020, and I just was, I was like, I got to make a better life for her. So I decided I was already bringing business at the other firm, and I just wanted to provide more for her and be an inspiration for her as a female, as a leader, and all the great things that come with having your own business. So I went for it, and here we are today, fast forward, and still in business.
Which, of course, brings me to the question, what are your plans for the future?
The plans for the future are, like I said, we do a lot of pro bono type work. We want to continue doing that. We also want to grow as a firm. We're thinking about expanding to other jurisdictions, maybe even abroad, because we do international tax as well.
Okay. That sounds fantastic. And it's a very attainable goal, especially in this day and age. I've learned that nothing limits you, but the limits you put on yourself. And so I certainly wish you the very best of luck with the firm and your colleagues. Finally, Anna, what is the one thing you'd like the viewer of this video feature to walk away with?
If you get a notice in the mail from the IRS or from the state taxing authorities, don't freak out. There are ways to handle it. I know a lot of people, they just get so scared when they see the numbers.
Exactly.
It's pretty intimidating when you're up against the government, right? There are ways to handle it. If you filed your taxes and you owe some sort of money, especially coming out of the pandemic, it affected the economy. A lot of people are struggling, and with inflation, it's difficult to make that payment maybe all at once. There are ways to handle it. You can do an installment agreement, maybe get into what's called a currently non-collectible status, which is where they don't collect against you. or even what's called an offer in compromise if they qualify, which is where you actually compromise the debt. So, for example, if you owe $100,000 and you don't have $100,000, based upon the taxpayer's personal finances and net equity and assets, it might, they might end up paying some fractional amount of that. So maybe they'll only pay $10,000.
So, in other words, don't shove that piece of paper in the trash. Don't shove it under your pillow. Don't shove it somewhere where you can't get it and pretend it away. Deal with it, and you may find that it's not as bad as you think it is.
Correct.
Excellent. Hana, thank you so very much. I wish you the best as my colleague. And thank you for that great lesson that you shared with us today. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.